Viltrumites are the most physically dominant species in the universe, stronger than anything alive, faster than anything alive. They heal from injuries that would kill every other being in existence. Scientists have never studied a Viltrumite, but they have studied the foods that push human physiology so far beyond its limits that the gap between us and them starts to close. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what to eat to build the closest thing to a Viltrumite body that human biology will allow. The last food on this list is the one that changes everything. Beetroot. Of all the Viltrumite abilities, the one that separates them most decisively from every other species is stamina. They do not tire, they do not slow down. They generate almost zero fatigue during combat while everything around them collapses. Scientists studying human endurance found one food that moves human physiology closer to that ceiling than anything else ever tested, and it grows in the ground. Beetroot contains extraordinarily high concentrations of dietary nitrates. When consumed, the body converts those nitrates into nitric oxide, a compound that dilates blood vessels, reduces the oxygen cost of physical effort, and allows muscles to sustain maximum output for dramatically longer periods. A 2012 study published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics found that athletes who consumed beetroot juice before exercise reached exhaustion 16% later than those who did not. Not a marginal improvement, 16%. In elite sport, fractions of a percent separate champions from everyone else. 16% is a different category of human entirely. Further research found that beetroot consumption increases the efficiency of mitochondria, the energy-producing structures inside every muscle cell, meaning the body produces more power from the same amount of oxygen. Viltrumites dominate through endurance that never ends. Beetroot will not get you there, but it moves the ceiling higher than almost anything science has found. Stamina is only one piece of the Viltrumite formula. The next food targets the attribute that makes them the most feared in direct combat, and the science behind it will make you question every meal you have eaten before a training session. Red meat. Viltrumite strength comes from muscle fiber chemical bonds that are thousands of times stronger than in human tissue. You cannot replicate that. But creatine, found in higher concentrations in red meat than almost any other food on Earth, is the closest thing to a chemical upgrade for human muscle that science has ever discovered. Creatine is the compound your muscles use to regenerate ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the currency of explosive physical effort. Every punch, every sprint, every maximum force contraction runs on ATP. The faster your muscles can regenerate it, the more force they can produce, and the longer they can sustain it before power output drops. Red meat, particularly beef and venison, contains between 3 and 5 grams of creatine per kilogram, the highest natural concentration in any food. A 2003 meta-analysis published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research reviewed 22 studies and found that creatine supplementation increased maximum strength output by an average of 8% and explosive power by up to 14%. What those studies supplemented, red meat delivers naturally in every serving. Viltrumites hit harder than anything alive because their muscle chemistry is fundamentally different. Red meat does not change your muscle chemistry, but it maximizes what human muscle chemistry is capable of producing, and most people are nowhere near that ceiling. Strength and stamina are the foundation, but the attribute that truly makes Viltrumites untouchable is the one that humans have no equivalent for, until now. The next food does something to human bone density that researchers described in their own paper as almost unbelievable. Natto. Viltrumites are invulnerable. Their tissue density is so extreme that only beings of comparable strength can cause them damage. Human bones are calcium structures that fracture under relatively modest force. But natto, a fermented soybean dish eaten in Japan for over 1,000 years, contains the highest concentration of vitamin K2 of any food on Earth. And what vitamin K2 does to human bone density has researchers rethinking the upper limit of what human physiology can achieve. Vitamin K2 activates a protein called osteocalcin, which binds calcium directly into bone matrix, dramatically increasing density and resistance to fracture beyond what calcium intake alone can achieve. A landmark study published in Osteoporosis International followed Japanese women consuming natto daily and found bone density levels significantly higher than control groups receiving calcium supplementation. A separate study measured the fracture resistance of high K2 subjects and found bones that absorbed impact forces that would shatter normal human bone without breaking. Natto contains roughly 1,000 micrograms of vitamin K per 100 gram serving, 10 times the amount found in any other food. Japanese regions with the highest natto consumption have the lowest osteoporosis rates on Earth by a significant margin. Viltrumites survive impacts that would destroy any other body. Human bones will never match that, but on a long enough timeline, with enough natto, they can become something your body was never supposed to be capable of building. Bone density makes you harder to break, but the Viltrumite attribute that terrifies every species in the universe is not how hard they are to damage. It is what happens after they are damaged. The next food targets human recovery at the cellular level in a way that science is still struggling to fully explain. Tart Cherry. After Invincible's fight with Conquest, one of the most brutal battles in the series, his Viltrumite physiology began repairing torn muscles, broken bones, and damaged organs in hours. Human recovery from that level of physical trauma would take months. Tart Cherry is the only food on Earth that has been shown in peer-reviewed research to accelerate human recovery so dramatically that sports scientists describe it as operating outside the normal boundaries of human physiology. Tart cherries contain the highest known concentration of anthocyanins, anti-inflammatory compounds that inhibit the same enzyme pathways targeted by ibuprofen, but with a recovery effect that pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories cannot replicate. A study published in the Scandinavian Journal of Medicine and Science in Sports gave marathon runners tart cherry juice for 5 days before and 2 days after a race. The cherry group recovered muscle strength to baseline levels 24 hours after the race. The control group had not recovered at the same markers after 48 hours. That is not a modest difference. That is recovery operating at a fundamentally different speed. Further research on strength athletes found that tart cherry supplementation reduced muscle damage markers by up to 22% following maximum effort training. Viltrumites recover because their cells repair damage at a speed that defies what biology should allow. Tart cherry will not give you that, but it is the closest thing to accelerated cellular repair that exists in any food on Earth, and most athletes have never heard of it. Recovery, bone density, stamina, strength. 4 Viltrumite attributes.